We can put you in front of any door, but you still have to knock. That's really like the value in Orr.
Current Orr Fellow is an executive director.
Yeah,
That's dope.
I know. Whenever alumni say like, what can I do to help Orr? It's like, go and be great. That's the best marketing we could do.
What is a hidden gem in Indiana?
Okay, so there's two that come to mind.
From South Bend to Evansville and everywhere in between, this is Get In, the show focused on the Hoosier State and the incredible stories happening here today. I'm Nate Spangle, founder of Get Indiana, and I will be your host for today's conversation. Today I'm joined by Stephen Emch, President of Orr Fellowship. Stephen has an incredible background in economic development as well as high-growth tech companies, but now he's leading the charge at Orr Fellowship. Orr Fellowship is the nation's leading early career development program for high-achieving new college graduates and future-focused firms. Say that 5 times fast.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
I would know that this is a great organization because I was an Orr Fellow, and this is going to be an amazing episode. I'm super excited to dive in. Today, we're going to be talking about Indiana's appeal to young professionals and why you should start your career here in the Hoosier State, why young people should invest in organizations like Orr Fellowship and Orr Fellowship in particular, and we're going to discover a little bit about the future of work and innovation in Indiana and some cool things that the fellowship is doing with AI. Stephen,
that's
welcome.
your teaser.
Welcome to
right
Get In. Yeah. Teaser. AI. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Glad to be here. Excited to talk to you. This is a full circle moment for you. I feel like being an alumni, now having your podcast and getting to have Orr Fellowship on it is really
Oh my
fun.
gosh, it's amazing. Like, it's so cool. To like, I remember sitting down in my first ever monthly meeting. Max Yoder was our speaker.
The GOAT.
Which is also full circle for you, right?
Yeah,
like
totally.
From your time at Lessonly. Like, Max was the speaker and he was talking about, he had just released his book and we all got a copy of it. And I was like,
Yeah.
this guy is just like, that's a dream. Like,
Yeah,
he started his
totally.
company and is growing and was an Orr Fellow. And like, now I get to like go build this company and like get to work with Orr Fellowship and hopefully in the near future, like be a host company at some
We'd
point,
love
which
it.
would be fun.
Yeah.
Please pay your ad sponsorships. Like, please help us out there, and then we'll be able to hire Orr Fellows. But I'm super excited to dive into this because obviously I'm like the Indiana. Like, I love Indiana. Indiana is great. It has been an amazing place for me to start my career and grow a business.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to dive in and like tell a little bit more of that story. I know you're a big data and numbers guy, and I want to hear some of those stories and whatnot. Of like, I mean, start at the top. Like, what do you feel like being from Arizona, coming to Indiana, makes the Hoosier State a great place for people to start their career?
You know, just to give context to your audience here, like I moved here when I was 24. It's 2017. I had been working in family business my whole life, which was childcare. So it's been about a decade in that, which is kind of a funky business. Not
Spending a decade in childcare at the age of 24, like, that's family business, right?
Yeah, my dad's birthday present for all of us kids at 13 was a job, and so we were all janitors. So I was cleaning up bathrooms and kitchens and hallways and classrooms for the kids and a bunch of toddlers. We took care of about 1,800 kids a day. So like, it's a lot of messiness. So it was not insignificant the amount of cleaning that I got to do in that decade, but it was really great for me to get exposed to quite a bit. And we can totally come back to that. But you know, I met and fell in love with the Butler girl. She wanted to be out here. My mom's originally from a small town called Winnemac, Indiana.
Oh, go Warriors! Winnemac Warriors!
Yeah,
Come on,
for sure,
let's go.
for sure. Yeah, and so we still have family out there. Actually, 2 of my sisters have moved out there now, and we actually
To Winnemac?
Yeah.
Wait,
Totally.
your sisters moved from Arizona to Winnemac.
I know.
That's wild.
Yeah, well, it's the lifestyle they wanted. They wanted a little bit more space, and my sister has 4 kids and wanted them to be able to run around and experience that.
I mean,
And
no
Phoenix,
better place
Arizona, there's
than
not a lot of space for that.
the seat of Pulaski County,
Yeah, for
Winnemac,
sure.
Indiana, baby. Come on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been fun. We actually started.
Wait, how did you meet? Wait, this is like not necessarily professional, but like, how did you meet a Butler girl being in Arizona?
Yeah, it was actually on a mission trip that we were both on. I was still living in Phoenix, Arizona. She was living in Central Illinois, so Morton, Illinois, pumpkin capital of the world. Oh, that's kind of a big deal.
We don't brag about anything that's not of Indiana on here.
Yeah,
no,
sorry,
just kidding.
my bad.
Just kidding. We're okay.
Yeah, so they're right outside. That's right outside Peoria, Illinois, which most people know instead of Morton. But we were in New York on this mission trip. Met there, did long distance, and ended up getting married. And I was trying to get out of the family business. She wanted to be in Indy. Felt like it made sense, and so I moved out here. Started over. Was super blessed to have ended up at Lessonly, which that's sort of where this whole Orr Fellowship through line in my life starts.
So you're 24. You get a gig at Lessonly.
Yeah.
What stage of the company was that at?
I was employed. This is such a startup thing to know, but I was employee number 83.
That's
Lessonly.
pretty still early there.
Yeah,
like,
it was decently early. The week after I got there, we closed Series B, I believe. So we closed. I think that was $8 million. we had champagne at work and all this stuff. And it's like, man, startup life's amazing.
So sick. Yeah.
So exciting. So exciting.
How long did you stay at Lessonly?
I was there 2.5 years.
And then
So
you moved on to
basically,
IEDC, right?
Yeah. Lessonly, 2.5 years, it was Series B to basically Series C. I left a couple months before they closed Series C, which was another $8 million, I believe. In that time, we doubled employee size from 80 to about 160, quadrupled revenue. I was on the sales team, which was like, that's a very fun group to be a part of while that stuff's happening at the company. So that was really fun. Moved to the state to work on economic development and specifically innovation entrepreneurship activity at the IEDC, trying to make more stories like Lessonly happen here in the state. Not just venture-backed startups, but startups of all shapes and sizes. So mom and pops on a street, we call those Main Street companies. So like a hair salon, a restaurant, whatever. Trying to make those start and be more successful more often. And then obviously the venture community, making sure startups are happening and are getting funded and hopefully going through liquidity events. Was there for 2.5 years, also during COVID. So that I started my job March of 2020 there, which was a weird time to be transitioning a job for sure, especially into a state agency that the governor ended up tasking with buying all the PPE for the entire state, which there's a lot of like mini stories we could get into. That was a very wild time.
Wait, IEDC was in charge of buying the PPE for the entire state?
Yeah. So the IEDC, this gets a little granular, but it's a quasi-governmental agency. So it can move much, much faster than any of the other governmental agencies, especially when it comes to contracting. And we were contracting large amounts of cash to buy large amounts of PPE. And time was of the essence in COVID, right? Because nobody knows what's going on and everybody's scared. And so we were trying to get especially all the doctors and nurses, the equipment they needed to actually provide care for people coming into the hospital. So IEDC got tasked with that, and we got tasked with a bunch of other things. Like my specific responsibility during that ended up being the Small Business Restart Grant Program, which in total was $90 million of money from the CARES Act that we were responsible to give out to small businesses, which was nuts. That was like a startup experience within the state because the governor announced it on a Thursday during his press conferences that he would do every week. And he said, we're going to take applications starting tomorrow at noon. And that was the first I had heard about that. So it was a fun time.
Well, I think that's so crazy to put that in perspective. It's like I always say, it's like, yeah, we're not saving lives here. Like I'm hosting a podcast. We're not saving lives. It's like IEDC, like you show up on a Tuesday, like, we're not saving lives here. And then all of a sudden, we are saving lives. Now we're saving lives here.
Yeah, it was a quick pivot.
Well, you go through that, like that insane experience. I mean, it has to be like there's 10,000 stories we could probably go into there.
Yeah.
But that experience parlays you into now the president of Orr Fellowship. And talk to me about what was appealing about this job and the opportunity, because you are the first president of Orr Fellowship. It's had like executive directors and different titles and employees and stuff like that, but this is the first president job. So talk to me about that.
Yeah. When I think to fully answer your first question on why this is a great place for young professionals, I share my story in response to that question, because I don't think my story of coming here at 24, and I was an SDR for 2.5 years at Lessonly. So not the most glamorous job, a very hard job, very grindy job. But, I was able to go from that and through sheer force of a lot of hard work, but tons of great people, go from that to being president of an organization in roughly 5 years, right? So from 2017, I became president in 2022 here at Orr. And I think that's a story that can be possible and attainable for a lot of people here because of the community that is in Indy and that Hoosier hospitality that people talk about. There's always the dollars and cents comparisons, which we almost always come out ahead on. But what I think is really what sets us apart, and even in my own lived experience, is the fact that people recognize hard work. This is such a small town when you start plugging into it. Everybody knows everybody. And I think opportunity really starts to find you as your brand. Here, what seems to be valuable is working hard and being good to people. That's the advice I give to fellows all the time, is work hard, be good to people, be patient, and these opportunities tend to find you. And that's been my story.
And it's be patient, but it's it comes quicker than you think, right?
Totally.
It's be patient, but doesn't mean just sit on your hands and do nothing. It's keep doing the good stuff. And Indiana does find a way to reward. I mean, I'm sitting here living proof of it as well. Yeah. I remember, and I'm going to give my Orr Fellowship experience, right? It's going through the process, and I love John Gaz and the whole team at Apex Benefits. So if someone does listen, it's they were my 5th choice out of 5. I was like, dude, I don't know if I want to get into insurance. And someone gave me the advice, was trust it, trust the process.
Totally.
All these companies are vetted. And I'm a dumb college senior. Like, I don't know anything. And like, I didn't think I was dumb. I thought I was really smart. And it's like,
we all do.
Okay, all right, I'm going to do this. And I showed up, and those were it was the best first job. So full circle there, right? Anyway, like, it was amazing. They were so good to me. Like, I had amazing mentors, and I just had a great experience. And then it was like, not only just work, but like all the stuff within the fellowship was just like, it was insane. And I felt like I started like miles ahead of other 22, 23, 24-year-olds because of my time in the fellowship, and not just like doing like the bare minimum of that, but like just going and putting in this hard work and meeting everyone and being good to people. Like, that's such a great slogan.
Yeah, no, and I think we tend to overcomplicate life and careers, but I think it is generally that simple. Like, work hard to be good to people, especially in this city. And what I see in Orr Fellowship is a way to kind of compress that. The same way an accelerator tends to compress time for a startup, I see Orr Fellowship doing that for our alumni of the organization, where they're able to move much, much faster in their career because we're functionally compressing anywhere from 5 to 10 years of their career down into this 24-month experience in Orr, where they're going to be at this firm, where they're going to be focused in high agency roles with business outcomes. They're going to have executive access. People like Max that you got to talk to, like, I had executive access through, just by nature of the team I was on, was a lot of Orr fellows. So they sort of lumped me in with them, which was great for me.
By proxy. He was a fellow by proxy, right?
Yeah.
Well, I guess, and just because we might have a few listeners out there that aren't totally aware, even though I talk about it all the time in my experience with Orr Fellowship, but like, if you had to give the 1 minute elevator pitch for Orr Fellowship, like, give it to us.
Yeah, totally. So we're an early career development program for versatile high achievers. You can read that as generalists too. So people without really discrete skill sets, but broad, that have displayed leadership and high community involvement. And we pair them with future-focused organizations here in central Indiana and soon to be Evansville as well. So when we say future-focused, that means firms and businesses that are able to think outside of just the day-to-day operations. So they're thinking not just how am I going to meet payroll next week, which is a very real thing. You know, growing up in an entrepreneurial family, like, there was dinners where we went out to dinner and my dad was like, no sodas for anybody tonight. Like, we got to drink water because dad's got to hit payroll. And that's a very real thing, right? So we want companies that are able to think a little bit further out than that and be thinking, what's the future of my organization's leadership pipeline? Who's going to be driving us into the future here on new ideas and new thinking coming into the organization? And another way to look at it would be, what's the future of a workforce here in Indiana look like? Like, not everybody's in a space where they can hire an Orr fellow and just keep them forever, but they're like, I want to help retain and plug into these individuals coming here.
And this is important, right? Because I think there's a stat, right? Like, 84% of people, of young talent that come into the fellowship end up staying in Indiana.
Yeah, at the end of the fellowship, they end up staying here. And we've been doing this for almost 25 years now. We were founded in 2001. It's kind of crazy to think about, but of our entire alumni base, which is over 600 people now, almost 60% of them are all still here, which is crazy when you look at what is happening at the university. There's no shade. I'm a very huge fan of, and we're blessed as a state to have such prestigious universities here in the state. But we're able to couple with that this great experience post-university, post-undergraduate program to really enhance their experience here in Indiana and show them what life can look like. So we're going to recruit, assess, and match these individuals with these high agency roles in these businesses, and together, Orr Fellowship and that company, we call them partner companies. We partner together in the development of the individuals that they hire, these fellows, to build them into the leaders of the business community, the community broadly, and then maybe even public institutions, depending on if that's where they end up. So it's very, very fun to watch this development cycle across 24 months. People change so much, especially earlier in their career as they get into the real world.
Yes.
Like you made the comment earlier about how you thought you knew what you wanted. At like 20, 21 years old, you're graduating and you're like so sure about your life plan. I know what I thought my life plan was, and I'm so thankful that didn't come true.
Yeah, right.
Like, I was so wrong, and that's what's great about life.
And it's like, I mean, the best kind of thing that I think about when you're a recent grad, and it's like, you don't know what you don't know, and you got to go out there and like have the coffees and meet the people and do the things to like realize like I think back, I always wanted to like start a company and be a founder, and like I was like, okay, I'm gonna graduate college and start a business, and it's like, dude, I did not have the discipline. I would like starting a business easy. Anyone can start. You can start a business today, but like grow a business, like keep it alive. Like I'm glad I had 5 years of experience in the real world before like taking that leap. Because like, I mean, I would have no idea. I would be so screwed, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, I felt the same way. Like, you know, I'd been working for basically a decade, moving out here when I was 24, and I get to Lessonly, and like, egotistical Steven at 24, 25 years old is like, why am I not like an executive here? Like I have more experience than like all these people because everybody's young at a startup. And then you work for 2-3 years and you're like, oh, that's why I'm not an executive. It's because I actually don't know what I'm talking about most of the time. And like they've earned their stripes and they're further ahead than me or whatever the thing is. You start to realize how much there is to learn and how much opportunity there is.
And you check your ego. Like totally. I think and this is for, hopefully there's some fellows that come and listen to this. And it's like the game-changing piece of my career was when like I started like being comfortable saying, I don't really know, and like asking questions about that to go learn it versus like trying to make up some like BS of like, oh, I'm the smartest person. Okay, if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room. Yeah. Right. Like I want to be, I want to always be the person that has the most to gain from being in the room. And those are the rooms that you want to spend time in. So
yeah, absolutely. I think like Mark Caswell, a good friend of mine, a mentor of mine for a long time, he just had this great post on LinkedIn where he was talking about across your career, you should always chase your curiosity, never your ego. Like never chase the title game or whatever, because there's things that you can only learn at each stage. Like when you're a senior manager, you should stay there and learn whatever is you can only learn as a senior manager. And then as you progress through your career, those things just sort of come naturally, the progressions. And I see this a lot in Orr Fellows because they're a group of highly ambitious individuals, which is how they get into the program, is because they've been successful so far. But we end up, unfortunately, compressing the time frame of our careers so much where our expectation is we're going to be leading an organization in 18 months out of college or whatever the thing is, and you're constantly feeling like you're on this hamster wheel trying to keep up. And so it's really like life is a very long game here. Like, how old are you, Nate?
I am 27.
So you're 27. You already have 5 years of experience, and now you're starting a business, which like 21-year-old Nate was like, that's forever away. Like being 27
like
before
5 years, I'll be so old. Oh my God. I'm like, I'm still young and spry, baby. Yeah. Come on.
And like you think about the experiences, I'm 31, and like the experiences I've been able to collect just in my time, even just here in Indiana, but then stretching back into Phoenix growing up, like there's so much time in this game of life that we don't give credit for. We end up playing it like it's a really short game and making short-term decisions. So,
and Seth Morales, actually, this was crazy. I was a fellow and I was like so hungry. And like, I had this like, oh, I should be this, or like, and I thought I was entitled to something because I had like gotten this prestigious program. I was like, I'm entitled to, like, I should be in the executive steering committee. Yeah. And I was like, looking back, I'm like, you're a moron, Nate. But he sent me this post on LinkedIn. And it's like, if a CEO sends you a post on LinkedIn, you're like, oh shoot, like this is,
I should pay attention.
Right. And it was a podcast of Dabo Sweeney, who is a Clemson football coach. And it was like, there's no elevator to success. Like you have to take the stairs. And I think that a lot of times, like you read these, or you see these Instagram posts or these people in the Forbes list or whatever, and you're like, oh my gosh, it was so easy for them. And it's like, man, you got to take the stairs every single day and just like work. And that's what like presents the opportunity. And I think a lot of times people think you can just like hop on the elevator, and it's like, they don't see all the like, the flights of stairs that you had to climb.
Yeah, and like the iterative steps. I shout out to one of your previous guests, Elliot Parker. He recommended, I think 2 or 3 years ago now, a book that I quote all the time, Why Greatness Can't Be Planned. And it's basically saying like you can't predict or you can't game your way to an outcome. You actually have to like go through the iterative steps to even know what the right outcome is. And the way this book is written by a couple computer scientists, that they were trying to teach AI this algorithm on how to make new discoveries. And they found that the way to get to novel new discoveries that are exciting is through chasing serendipity, basically, and novelty, not necessarily the super iterative process where you're like, oh, that's the end goal, then I'm just going to make this really linear point A to point B plan. It's actually through this really random process where the analogy they use is like you should collect stepping stones instead of just trying to get to this final thing and try to game everything to that. You're trying to collect as many stepping stones as possible and get as much optionality as possible. What I learned in that book was like the end destination is actually kind of unknowable, because what we've talked about already on this podcast a couple times is like how much we've changed. And it's just we're both fairly young, right? And so it's like how much we've changed even just this far in our career, and I say we're going to do this for another 30 years. Like there's a lot more change coming, right?
Yeah, it's like I'm going to get bored with something, and I'm going to have to I need to go chase something new and go be curious about whatever, right?
And so I think like the right thing for anybody early career or in their career just generally is like, you don't know the end destination. The experience actually helps define what the end destination is supposed to be, right? Because you don't necessarily know those things about yourself. And as you learn things, that's where you make new discoveries and learn new things about yourself. Where
I love it.
Yeah, at Apex Benefits, you never would have picked insurance, but there's things you learn there.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, it's wild.
So much that like, It's just crazy. Like I could go and do a whole masterclass on like why that was such a good experience for me, but it was great. Shout out to you all. Hopefully there's some listeners from Apex, but I do want to like dive into, if we had to summarize, like when, for the young professionals, right, or the young like college seniors that are out there listening of like, man, I think I want to go be in Chicago, or I want to go to New York or LA or San Francisco or wherever. It's like, what are the like, hey man, you need to really evaluate Indiana, Indianapolis, Evansville, like Indiana in specific, to start your career because of X, Y, and Z? What would you say?
Yeah, well, I think the community that I've mentioned already, like through my experience, that does not have to be a unique experience. And I think Indiana and Indianapolis and the people I've come to know in Evansville are far and above some of the nicest and most like hospitable and collaborative people I've ever met in my life. Like I spent a decent amount of time in Arizona, and the quality of people I know here is so much higher, partially because of the things I've been involved in. But I think the people here are just so great and so nice and so willing to help out. So I think that's a huge piece of it. I think the cost of living is obviously like not close to what Chicago or New York or the coast is going to be. Like you're going to come out way ahead there. And then I think there's such a variety of industries here in Indiana, like whether it's software and technology or like agriculture. There's a ton of interesting things happening in agriculture. I think it gets a bad rap, and people think about it as like the farmer in overalls. And like, while that is a part of it, there's a ton of innovation happening in there in that space that is really exciting and really akin to what's happening in life sciences too. And obviously life science is a huge deal here, manufacturing. All that to say is that you can get broad exposure to so much stuff here in the state that people tend to write off and think a good life for me is in these other places. I can't have that here. And I think that's just like an untrue narrative, where there's great, compelling lives to be lived here, and there's great opportunity to take advantage of.
Like, I think that you can make an impact here quicker.
Totally.
Like 5 years in, that you had the opportunity to be a president of like a really meaningful organization that's like doing amazing work for young people and for industry and companies in the state. Like, that was what I was drawn to. I was like, man, I can make an impact in my local community very quickly here in Indiana if you do the right things and you like are willing to work hard.
Yeah, it's not complicated. Having a lot of ambition, working hard, being good to people, and life seems to come to you. Like, put in the time, be patient.
Yes, absolutely. Like, remember, there's no substitute for the stairs. There's no elevator, right? But if we go into like the ways in which Orr Fellowship, because the organization is a little bit different from, I mean, I was 2019 to 2021, so 3 years. It's gone through some changes that are good changes, and it's growing. And I'm excited to talk about the ways in which it is growing. But like, talk to me about the ways you're investing in young people and the outcomes that you're seeing from fellows.
We're a highly, I would say, evolutionary or like iterative program on purpose, because people change so much over time. You know, we grew a lot when millennials were partaking in the program, but now, you know, we're on a different generation. So it's like, what are their needs coming out of college? What are they interested in? And how do we provide for them in those ways to make sure they're getting what they need? The employers are getting the development they need from those individuals. But some of the highlights of the things we do, it's a business leader speaker series is one of them. So you're familiar with this, as hasn't changed from when you were involved, but this is a lot of like the guests that you have on this podcast coming in to talk to Orr Fellows in a much more scaled down, intimate environment where they're sharing their life, their lessons learned, what they've done, and helping fellows understand what's possible for them too.
Full circle moment. Tomorrow I have a guest, Leonard Hoops. Leonard Hoops was my second ever BLS, right?
Yeah.
So like, I sat in there and he talked to me about, we're going to host All-Star Weekend and this and that. I was like, it was 2019. It was like, this was years down the road. he's already thinking about 2023 or 2024, whatever. Yeah. And I was like, and now he's coming on my podcast like 5 years later. It's like, that's a crazy, like, we sat in, the speaker series is amazing.
Yeah. It's consistently far and above the most popular event that we do with fellows. And I think it's because it shows shows them like role models of like, hey, like none of the people we invite in have these super linear career paths. Like even when Max came in and talked to you, it's like he was at Lessonly, he was growing really fast and doing great, but he had a failed business before that in Quipple, right? Which I'm sure he actually talked about because that was a super meaningful part of his development. And so like very not linear, like his career path, right? And so I think that's really important. But a couple of other things, we partner with a firm called Advisa. Shout out Advisa if you're watching. They built a 2-year curriculum for our fellows. So moving them through self-awareness to self-management to then like leading and influencing others.
Oh, I'm jealous of that one. That's dope.
And it's like, look, I've been blessed to be able to do some executive coaching in my life. And what I see the fellows going through is really just like a scaled down version of what exec coaching does, and specifically for their time frame in life. So I think that's really amazing and an awesome opportunity for them that you don't get outside of Orr Fellowship for sure. They get involved with nonprofits and just community events generally, but we do nonprofit consulting. We'll bring in nonprofits, take on strategic projects with them. So that could be helping find a new executive director, volunteer management, fundraising, all sorts of things they'll take on and help coach them. Case and pitch competitions, a ton of social activity because we got a bunch of 21 to 23-year-olds in the program.
Oh, yeah.
That's important.
Yeah.
And that's like where friendships and those like deep, meaningful moments are born. I think wrapped around all of these though, and what's most important to us is like building this dense network for these individuals. That's like the biggest value that people tend to get from Orr. There's certainly the jobs and like the education on the jobs, but I think of Jim Collins in his book, Good to Great. He talks about who luck versus what luck. And for a quick definition, who luck for him, he talks about over the course of his career, the biggest changes in his career and the biggest leaps he's made have all been on the back of people he's known. It's never been his what luck, which is like the technical specific thing you're working on and that you have your hands in right now. The things that are going to change your career and provide these leaps are these people that you get to meet. And so we try to find the best people we can to be involved in this program, from the fellows and the partner companies, to create this really meaningful ecosystem of A players where you have this horizontal network. I mentioned our alumni network, 600 people. We have 120 people in the program right now. It's not insignificant, the amount of people involved and the quality of those people. I had to build that on my own when I got here, and that took a lot of hard work, like a ton of hard work, and it was pretty lonely for a lot of it. We're giving that to fellows coming into this, and I think it's easy to understate the value that comes from that network, but it just increases across time.
It's crazy. Like I think about like when you compare joining Orr Fellowship versus like a Lilly or a Roche. Like, cause I remember like those were like the desired jobs.
Yeah,
like I want to go work at Lilly. Like you spend all of your time at Lilly, like networking with other people that work at Lilly because you want to climb up this corporate ladder, get on the MBA track and all that stuff. And it's like all of a sudden like you become 30 and you like pick your head up and you're like, I don't know anyone who does anything else, and I don't like pharmacy anymore.
Yeah.
Like I want to go do something different, but you don't know anybody.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, I got to meet so many people. Like I can't overstate how impactful the fellowship has been. Like I raised my first round of like investment dollars from Orr Fellowship connections.
Amazing.
Like I got my job at Powder Keg, which got me this. Like I am here because
also founded by an alumni.
Also founded by an Orr Fellow alumni, and like I didn't have to update a resume. Like I have never changed a resume from when I got into the fellowship, and I've never planned to. Hold me to that team. Like
well, now you're a founder, so you don't. Hopefully, you don't. Need
hopefully,
a
I don't
resume
ever
anymore.
need to. Right. But it was like I like met Matt because he was a fellow, and I had been coming through, and I was meeting a ton of people, and like. After like a few, conversations and whatnot, he was like, "Yeah, dude, you should come and join as head of community of Powder Keg." And I was like, "I don't even know what that means, but this is sick. Like, let's go." And it came from the fellowship, like so many great friends and like mentors and people that like have my back, like customers, like all of these things, like like center around my time in the fellowship. And I like, it's just like put me like, I mean, I'd like to believe like out in front of the average 27-year-old.
Yeah, but I think like the other part of that, Nate, that I think is really important, especially for people listening, is like the network exists, but it's really like latent unless you activate it. So like the network's not valuable unless you, like being Nate, like what was your like you met with all the people with coffee or whatever.
I sent everyone in the alumni directory a LinkedIn connection request. Started in 2002 all the way to 2019 or whatever. Yeah. Like at the time it was like 400, I think. And I would like split it up into like 50 a week and like over the course of 8 weeks. And I asked every single one. And I had like, I did like 75 coffees over the course of a year with alumni, like from all the way from like a financial advisor in Evansville. And I like got off the call and I was like, I do not want to do that. Like respect, like good for her, like whatever. But I was like, that's not for me. To like CEO, like Max and Matt and all these founders and CEOs that gave me the time because I said, hey, I'm a current Orr Fellow. I don't know what I want to do when I'm done with this, but I want to start a business one day. You look really successful. Like, would you talk to me? And they did.
Totally.
It was dope.
Yeah. I think Scott Brenton, one of our founders, says consistently, like, we can put you in front of any door, but you still have to knock. And that's really like the value in Orr is like we create all these opportunities for success to happen and we really stack the deck in your favor, but you still got to play the game. Like you still got to get out there and do the things. And I think you brought up a point that we don't talk about a lot, but I think it's actually really important as far as value coming out of Orr Fellowship is the sort of learning by proxy. So meeting that financial advisor, you're like, I don't want to do that. Meeting Max and Matt, you're like, that seems pretty cool. Being a founder seems like what I want to do. And so you get to learn not just from your own experience, but because this community is tight and there's this inherent bond between you all that's like fairly fraternal it creates the opportunity for you to have those experiences and meet with individuals that you wouldn't meet otherwise in jobs that you have no clue about, to get you that exposure.
And I think this is important to know, that it kind of takes away the, like, you have to prove yourself when you're like, when you're cold calling on this person to like get on there. Like, hey, I'd love to pick your brain for coffee.
Yeah,
I'm Nate, and I'm like, I promise I'm a high
you don't
achiever.
have to project anything.
Yeah, and it's like, no, like, hey, I did this program that you also did. Like, we have this stickiness, and it's like a threshold. Like, oh, this person's probably worth my time.
Yeah.
And I think about that when they reach out to me currently, when current fellows are like, I'm like, oh, if they made it through like your vetting process to become a fellow, then like they're probably worth the hour coffee and like the $4 to buy them something from Java House, right?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Like if we're doing our job right, then it should be
exactly.
worth $4.
Okay, so I have two kind of questions of like wrap it up, like how you guys are investing. One is, if you were a fellow right now, like if you had just gotten into the program, started in June, what would you be the most excited about?
Would be BLSS for sure.
Is there a speaker in particular you'd be like, I'd just love to be a kid again? And not kid, young professional. I'd love to be a young professional again and listen to so-and-so speak.
You know, we just had a bunch of people just this past week come in that are super involved in the community, like Al Carroll from Indie Hub and a few others come in and share like what they're working on and all the opportunities to get plugged in. And basically, I think one of them said, like, if you're an indie and you're bored, it's your fault. Like, you're the boring person, not indie. But I think like the ability to get exposed to all of the things going on, that was just one of them. But then we had a sports themed one where Bulls was at that, talking about his experience. But that panel had 5 different people on it. So you get this like broad exposure, and they're all leading, you know, like Pacers, Fever, all this stuff. You get that broad exposure. So I think those are really interesting. We had Max the other day, Max Yoder, shout out to him. Like, I think any of those, man, like I don't think it's specific. I know that's kind of like a cop out, but I think that's really important. And then the other thing, I say this because it was what ended up being a big deal for me in my career, even sans being a fellow, is there is an opportunity and an expectation that as a fellow, you're going to like raise your hand for projects at work. I think the ability to take on more than just your role and prove value, like for me at Lessonly, when I was there, they were reworking how we did objectives as an organization, like completely. They wanted to start over, build it from the bottom up, how we wanted to do it, and make it so like everybody as an SDR all the way to Max as CEO had objectives tied to their day-to-day. They asked if anybody wanted to help on that, and it was myself and one other person in a company of like 100 people that raised their hand to help out on that. And so I worked with Brian McNamee, the COO, and our CFO there, he's COO now at Stitch, and Connor Burt as president on that project, and Megan Jarvis. And it was so fun, like being able to work on that and get that exposure. So I think fellows have that opportunity to raise their hand, to get involved in so much more than what other people would be able to get involved in, simply because they get this sort of credibility rubber stamp around them as Orr Fellows to get involved and learn and be a part of these things that are going to stretch you. They're certainly going to be hard, but that's the point.
Yeah, and even if it's like not within your company, it's like, oh, you might be a salesperson, but you want to learn about marketing. Cool, join like the marketing team for Orr Fellowship and help market the organization and stuff like that. Like,
yeah, we have a whole fellow leadership team, which they vote on the fellows that take those jobs. There's 7 of them, but then they all have teams underneath them. Like Megan Green, our current director of marketing, she's like, her team's almost like 30 people.
That's insane.
You know,
true story. I ran for chief of staff for Orr Fellowship and got beat, and it was one of the best things because it was like, you know, it's, you still think you're like, oh, I'm gonna be like this and I deserve this, and it's like, and then and a jury of my peers, I was not elected, and I ended up becoming the true story. I ended up becoming the chief morale officer.
There you go.
And COVID happened.
Yeah,
and like
it became a really important job, right?
And I started putting out a weekly video series.
Yeah.
That was like Morale Mondays. And I was like, but, and like, I could still go back, and it was just like me making funny videos to like give people entertainment while you're like locked up in your house. And like fast forward 3 years or whatever, and I like literally put out videos on Instagram for a living.
Yeah.
Like but had I become chief of staff, then I like definitely would not have been the morale officer and yada, yada, yada. And like full circle moment there. Now I make videos. So
yeah, when I mean, the through line through a lot of this conversation is like, when you're too, like when you hold your life plan too tightly, like you end up closing off opportunities like this one. Like if you were just bummed out about chief of staff and you're like, no, this is like the plan, I got to do this. Like, you never would have been able to do the chief morale officer because you would have like been too bummed out.
I've been like a stick in the mud, like, bro, you guys don't like me, then I'm done with this, whatever.
Yeah. So I think like the ability to adapt, like I always say as a leader, your job is to do your best to predict the future and then adapt where you're wrong. And I think that you're supposed to do that in life too, with your career or whatever. It's like, everybody's going to be wrong some amount of time, and probably more than we're all comfortable with. And I certainly feel that as an executive, and even like as a dad and husband, it's like there are hard things that you wrestle with, but your job is to do your best to predict the future and then
Mm-hmm.
leave your ego at the door so you can adapt to whatever the right answer is then in the moment.
Amen. This is like a master class on like being young. Okay. Well, then what I want to wrap up this little segment about is well, you've been president for 3 years now.
2 years, just over two.
Just over two. You've seen 120 at least alumni graduate, finish the program, whatever you want to call that.
We say graduate.
You graduate, right?
Yeah.
You get a little diploma.
Yeah, and we do a little graduation ceremony now too, which is pretty fun.
Fun fact: it was a roast back in my day.
Well, we still do that. There's just a day after that now. That's a little more formal.
There's a little more a little like nicer. Like I remember, it was the best part because like I'm like the most roastable person in the world
for sure.
And I think it was I don't even remember who all it was, but like a lot of people had a heyday on it, and I was like, I love it. Come on.
Well, that's like part of the problem is like the more you're involved in Orr Fellowship, the more you get roasted at the end because everybody knows you and has more material.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a backsided part
like,
of it.
Like I remember I got to roast Tanner, and it was so funny. He's like, Tanner, like we've never even talked, and they chose me to roast you. Like that's the roast, right? Like that's you should have done more. You should have done more. So that was fun. But if you had to say like the 120 alumni that have gone through that you've seen, who would you say? Like, do you have like a story of someone who's just like crushed it? Who's like, oh man, like I point to this person as a model or fellow from your time.
There's quite a few that have gone on to do great things. I can think of two sort of off the top of my head that I probably know the most intimately because of them reaching out and asking for advice so much throughout their process. But one's Claire Bainey, who just wrapped up. She graduated in our last class here, and she was chief of staff in her time, but we worked a lot on where she was going after Orr. Throughout her 2 years with us, and she ended up being accepted into this Impact Investing Fellowship through Princeton University in Africa, right?
I saw this, and I was like, wow.
It's pretty wild, right? And it's like, obviously, Orr Fellowship, we're trying to connect people to opportunities here. We'd love to have them here, but if they're going to leave and go do stuff like that, it's like, you should leave and go do that.
Yeah, like you're going to Africa. Like, that's dope.
Yeah, it's really important. And I think for her story to have its roots in Indiana and have roots in Orr Fellowship, I think is really, really meaningful. The other one I think of, and I know you know him, is Hunter Beal. Like,
killer.
Very much the same as you. He like the lemon that was Orr Fellowship. He squeezed every freaking ounce of juice out of that thing as possible.
Dude, it is like you get a salary and you have a full-time job and you get compensated. Like you make good living in Orr, but like Hunter, and I mean, I thought myself, like I was like, I'm going to get $1 million worth of value out of this. Hunter might got $1 billion of value out of his time in Orr Fellowship.
Yeah, that he's a hustler, but he, through his 2 years, he was very involved in Orr Fellowship, despite some stuff in his family, like popping up and like pulling him away, but like still super, super involved. And then now he's executive director already. So he beat me, executive director, way faster than I was. But he's running an organization called Side Hustle School that really tries to help, I would say, like poverty-stricken communities and young kids that are stuck in poverty communities. Tries to help show them what entrepreneurship is and sort of the sweaty startup vibe. So think power washing, painting, window cleaning.
Dude, there's a story. We're actually gonna work on telling it, and it's gonna come out later. But like David, their like star pupil, like made $40,000 or $30,000 in a summer cleaning gutters.
Yeah,
and it's like, and Hunter like is like a mentor to him and like helped open some doors. But
it's
like,
awesome.
This I think he's now a senior at Arsenal Tech, and he gets to go like he runs a business that does $30,000 or $40,000 a year as a senior.
And that's like so attainable. Like it didn't take a whole lot of work. It just takes like role models to expose you to that. And I think Orr Fellowship can help with that. Hunter's now helping show that to the community. But yeah, those are just some of the ones I can think of. We had another person that went on to do Fulbright scholars right after Orr, another one that's in the Peace Corps right now, a bunch in grad school. Like I could go on, but those are some of the really specific stories I can think of.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And it feels like, I think there's like an old saying, and I'm going to butcher it, right? But it's like, look around the world, and there's usually a Hoosier right there. And it's like, look around Indiana and beyond. It's like you can usually find some ties to like pretty amazing things from Orr Fellowship.
Yeah, I would hope so. And like that's what we've seen proved to be true over the course of our time. Like we did a study on our alumni last year, and it kind of blew my mind. I knew Orr Fellowship was valuable, but it helped put a bit of a dollar amount on outcomes for our alumni. And compared to average bachelor's degree holder when they go through life, their lifetime earnings are just over $3 million. Like I believe it was 3.2 or $3.4 million, and that's from a Commission for Higher Education report they did. Orr Fellows, based on our projections, and these are conservative, we think it's actually a little bit higher, but this is what we're comfortable marketing. At a minimum, is like $7.5 million over the course of their life.
So you could say is that I'm a millionaire.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, go on.
So Orr Fellowship is loosely worth $4 million at a minimum, right?
Yeah.
And like I think that's like the trade-off that is easy to make when you're young is like a few $1,000s. Like when you look at comp, because we set comp in Orr Fellowship, it's what we've always done. It's what we'll continue to do to keep things fair between our partner companies. And it's easy when you're young to be like, well, there's $5,000 more here in my salary. Like I'm going to take this job because of that $5,000. And like, there's good reasons to take that $5,000, medical debt, needing to help the family, whatever the things are. But there's a lot of bad reasons too. When it's like, when I just want to make $5,000 more for maybe more drinking money, or just because I feel like I'm worth more than this, and it's like an ego thing. Those are not good reasons. Like those are trade-offs that you're making that over the course of your life are actually like very, very significant. And instead of the $5,000, you're trading off what seems to be about $4 million at a minimum.
And like people don't think about that, right? Like I remember being there and I was like, dude, $5,000, $10,000 raise, like I know that I'm going to get more out of this. Like I know that down the road, whether it's raising money, finding customers, finding co-founders, people you're going to hire, like having this experience is going to pay off. I didn't know that it was to the tune of $4 million. I was like, probably like I'll make millions down the road from my time in Orr Fellowship. Literally you will, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, it's important to note that like when we did that study, our oldest alumni were like young 40s. And so when they self-report whatever they're making, it's probably going to go up from here. And so like that number is probably going to grow. So that, like I said,
like when this media company grows to be a multi-billion-dollar thing, and I'm just like inflating that number.
Sure.
Next year, when I'm hosting my Get In Summit, right?
For sure. I will be there.
Exactly. So I want to talk a little bit about, one, I want you to give like the pitch to a senior, right? Where it's like, who are you looking for? Because you guys get to be, I mean, it's a selective process. And so like, hey, if you're a senior that have these qualities and are interested in these things, like this is the right organization for you.
Yeah. So I used the term versatile high achievers earlier, and that's a little bit vague on purpose because there's what maybe is helpful is to say what we don't care about. I don't really care what your degree is. Like we take people with any degree. I don't care what university you went to. We don't really weight that in our selection process. Like if you went to Princeton or if you went to Wabash, I don't really care. Like,
oh, well, we care about it. No, but it's like you have Notre Dame and you have, I mean, the whole gamut.
Like last year in our applicant pool, we had 60 different universities involved. A lot of people think it's just Indiana, but we had 60 different universities that somebody had applied from with a variety of degrees. So we don't really care about that. What we do care about is displayed leadership, either on campus or off campus. And so what I mean by that is you could be a student body president on your football, lacrosse team, field hockey, shout out Maggie Williams, field hockey captain, DePaul.
Go Tigers.
Yeah, go Tigers. To, I don't know, leadership in your Greek organization or whatever else makes sense on campus, or shift leader at Wendy's. Like, I don't really care where you fall in between that spectrum. So long as you're stepping up and accepting responsibility, that's what we're looking for. People that are willing to be involved, take responsibility, take leadership positions, because that's hard to do, especially when you're young. So we're looking for that. We are looking for some amount of academic excellence. We prioritize people with 3.2 or higher. We do take people lower than that, 3.2 GPA or higher. But there's got to be a pretty good reason why your GPA is lower than 3.2, right? It can't be because you partied too hard.
Because I was too busy leading from the front of the fraternity parties.
Yeah, exactly. But like, you know, if you started a business, first generation college student, or whatever the things are, you're working your way through college, like there's good reasons that your GPA might be lower. And then interest in business and entrepreneurship. And I would say we don't necessarily judge on this, but I think it's helpful for people that get the most out of the experience is people that are willing to give Indiana a chance. Right? As like a place to build a career and a life. Like if you have already written off Indiana in your head, Orr Fellowship's not going to change that. You know, it's like, you got to be open to the idea that Indiana could actually be pretty amazing, and we can show you how it can be amazing. But if you've written that story in your head already, then you're not going to be that interested.
Knowing that it's not like the buck doesn't end here. Just because you join Orr Fellowship does not mean you're like, oh my gosh, I'm locked into Indianapolis forever. Like, no, I have friends that have gone to Nashville, Africa, like LA, Hollywood, like all these crazy cool places. Like it's 2 years. Like you go to grad school. It's like I always the real world MBA. Like it's so true. It's like your real world MBA right after school, except for you get paid instead of having to pay money.
Yeah, which is a great flip, right? But I mentioned earlier about 60% of our alumni are still here, but that means 40% are all across the nation doing stuff, right? So you could, when you look at a city that you think about moving to, it's like maybe you want to move to New York or Chicago. There seems to be a big collection of Orr Fellows in Denver for some reason. I think a bunch of them just decided to live there.
Shout out Trevor.
Yeah, a few classes. Yeah, Trevor being a ring leader. So I'm still upset at him for taking Orr Fellows. But I think there's opportunity for you to extract value from this across the spectrum. But One final thing on who we're looking for. We are not complicated on who we're looking for. We're a bet-making organization. We're trying to find people that are the highest potential that we can find. We're going to be wrong on some of those, but the way we measure that is through Patrick Uncione's book, Ideal Team Player. We lean a lot on that book. Inside, he has a rubric called Humble, Hungry, Smart, and we rate fellows across that, or the applicants across that throughout the whole process. So we get we're on track to have a little over 1,000, probably close to 1,100 applicants this year for the program. We're going to take probably about 100 into the program, just for a frame of reference. So it's like just under 10%. And that's not to say we're proud of how many people we turn away. It's to say that like, hey, we have options and we are very intentional about who we let into this program.
It's hard.
Because it's dictated by, like our success is dictated by the success of our fellows.
Dude, I remember when the cuts were coming out, I was like, oh man, I hope I get a good email. Like I really please.
It's stressful for us too, because it's like you can only know so much about these people.
And it's like for people that don't know the process, right? It's like you go through, like you put your application in and then there's some on campus, like you still call them forums. Yeah. Is that still a thing, right? So you're on and you got to be the best at your school, like you got to make it through that round. Then you get invited, you come to Indy for reception on the circle. Is that still a thing?
Yeah, sure is.
Right? So
not on the circle anymore, but we still call it that.
Yeah. It wasn't on the circle when I was going through either. Like,
it hasn't been for years, but we've stuck with that name.
No, but it's a really great name.
ROTC feels like it fills off a ton of reception.
Yeah,
on the circle.
It's like you're there, and then it's like you got to be the best. Like I don't know, probably 300 or 400 people come there, and there's like 250. Yeah. Okay, and then half of them get invited to finalist day.
Yep.
Finalist day was one of the craziest days of my life.
It's nuts. It's a wild day.
Like if you're a college senior, you're getting 5 interviews with 5 different companies in one day.
8 interviews, yeah.
It's 8?
Yeah, 8 interviews across 8 different companies.
Oh, now I only had 4 in a lunch meeting.
Sorry, yeah, I'm thinking of
you're thinking from the partner company side.
Yeah, you're right.
From the fellow side. Well, sorry, one of us went through.
It's not like I run this thing.
Yeah, only one of us is sat on the other side of the table.
I know.
Right? So, but I had 5 interviews with 5 different companies and 5 different industries, and it's nerve-wracking. Like you're in there. Like we were in the IMS, like the pagoda or the media tower or whatever, and it's like you're in there, and it's like an open air thing, and like you see all these other killers in their suits up there, and I'm just like, oh man, I really hope I don't screw this up.
It's nerve-wracking for
sure.
And
then the best part of it all, you finish that day, and then you go home and you wait.
Yeah.
And you wait.
Pins and needles.
And you wait because it's like draft day, and you're like, man, I hope I get the call. Yeah. And it's like you get the call, and it's like, oh my God, let's go. I get a job. Let's go. Yeah. And then it's like, cool. Your board member is like calling. Mine was Kate Brocheers. She gave me a call. I was like, just want to let you know, you got offered a job by Apex Benefits. I'm like, let's go. Come on. I got my hat on there and I'm like on the table, like making my selection. It was sick. It was so cool.
It's fun. It's got a great energy to it. Like in that single day, we coordinate close to 500 interviews within, it's basically 8 hours. It's nuts. Like a lot of logistics go into that day. It's a bit of a house of cards, unfortunately, because of all those people, right? It's like, that's a ton of entropy we're kicking off for the state. It gets me so jazzed because like, even if the answer is a no for Orr Fellowship, the opportunity to get exposed to all those businesses and get those interviews and get those repetitions and then the other candidates that you meet, there's like no telling the value that's going to come from that day. So it gets me really jazzed for the entirety of the organization. But yeah, like 500 interviews that day. And then we do this big draft night, basically, where we put a big logo up and it's like the company logo and the person that got matched with them at the end. There's cheering, hooting, hollering. And then, one of our board members, we have 15 board members, great people that we're happy to have involved in this organization. They make those calls that night and they're super jazzed. It's like, you're invited to Orr Fellowship. This is the company that picked you and you got matched with. It's so fun. Great energy.
I love it. I actually, I set a record for finalist day. I think my first or second year, because it was still at the IMS or out at the Speedway, and I set the record for most high fives given in one day. Really? So every round,
I didn't know we tracked that.
Oh, I tracked it. Every round, I sat right by the stairs because you'd be on the bottom floor and then you'd walk up the stairs to the top floor. Yeah. I sat at the stairs and gave every single person before every single round a high five.
Cool. Yeah.
Even the ones that didn't want a high five.
We should have given you a plaque for that. Most high fives.
Most high fives. And like, people were like getting, I'm like, hey, it's cool. Like, come on, high five. Like, and I gave so many, 8 rounds of it, 100 each round or whatever it was crazy. It was so much fun. Yeah. I love it. Okay, well, we're going to get to the next piece, which is just more broadly talking about the future of work and innovation in Indiana. And Orr Fellowship is doing some really cool things. And the first thing I want to talk about is this expansion. And then I want to get into how you're thinking about leveraging AI. And it's not just a buzzword. He has some interesting ways we're going to put it into practice. So talk to me about the way that Orr Fellowship is growing.
We're growing sort of 2 ways. We're growing up and we're growing out. So we're continuing to grow class sizes here in Indy until really we feel like we hit that upper limit of what we can do. So we're going to keep finding great companies until we run out of great companies to partner with. And we're going to keep finding great finalists until we run out of great finalists to find. So the bottleneck for us has always been partner companies, really. And as you think about Orr Fellowship, a lot of people associate us with the tech industry. We were born out of the tech industry. Bill Osterley, Scott Brennan, and Angie Hicks started us out of Angie's List.
Maybe you've heard of them. Yeah. If you haven't heard of them, you should you should
look
hear
it
them.
up for sure. Yeah. They're pretty high up there on the family tree of technology here in Indianapolis. But they started us, and for those reasons and the fact that we've been deep in the tech industry for so long, people just associate us directly with tech. And if they're not a tech company, they write themselves off. But we now work with companies all across. But I think our fellows work in 70 different industries right now. Tech just makes up roughly like 15% of our partner companies. So like if you thought you're not a good fit, but you'd love to participate, feel free to reach out to me, Steven@orrfellowship.org. Try to keep it really simple. But yeah, so we are going to continue growing up in the number of partner companies we work with and a number of fellows in the program here in Central Indiana. But then the group at Evansville, they literally reached out. I think I started my job August 8th, 2022. I think they reached out like August 15th, 2022, saying like, hey, will you expand to Evansville?
Hey, new guy, bring it down here.
Totally. And I was like pretty overwhelmed, like trying to learn a lot. And we were in the middle of recruitment season, which is like a bit of a hectic time for our organization. It's a big like 4-month sprint. So like I didn't have a ton of extra time on my hand to think through this big strategic thing, but they were persistent. And what I found in them, and this is where I get to pull back into my time at the state, is really great collaborators with us and really key partners for making this successful. When you look at Orr Fellowship's legacy of success, it's not really on the back of any single person, although Scott Brenton really carried us on his back for a long, long time. Still on our board today, still helpful for us in setting the course forward. But I think we're really successful, because of the quality of the people coming into the program. But then I think one of the bigger things that we don't talk about a lot is how industry has really wrapped its arms around Orr Fellowship. We do not fundraise as an organization. Like our funding comes from partner companies that pay partner company dues for the fellows that they hire for the recruitment and then the development in their program. And that's largely how our funding has always been. We were thankful to get a grant last year, but historically that's the only thing we've only lived off of our partner company grants, our dues. And that's important because it makes us very tied to value for industry players, right? Industry is not going to just like throw good money after bad. Like if we're not producing valuable employees and valuable fellows for them that are creating business outcomes, they're not going to participate. So in Evansville, we found people that were very willing to wrap their arms around Orr Fellowship and bet on us. And now our job is to execute back for them. So we have application open for both chapters right now. People coming in and applying for them. It's been really cool actually to see the Evansville chapter has people applying for it from like all over, honestly. Like a lot of people thought it would be University of Evansville and University of Southern Indiana. And like that's certainly the majority, but we have people from IU, Purdue, Taylor, Wabash, DePaul, all applying to this program as well. So it's really, really cool to see this excitement for this chapter from our applicants, not just the partner companies, because everybody knows how big talent is for everybody these days. It's really what starts and stops most conversations is the people that you can get to wrap around an idea. And it's been really cool to not only see the businesses come alongside us in Evansville, but we're starting to see the applicants come alongside us too, which I think is always sort of the concern when you branch out of Indianapolis, which is, the capital here. It's the biggest city we have. And then you go to a new city that's smaller, probably doesn't have quite as much like nightlife or whatever the things are. And
hey, I've been out in Evansville. Yeah. It's a pretty good time.
I think people write it off too quickly, actually. I've said
that since I've been going It's a college town. It's a college town times two.
They have good stuff going on. And like, I think as people get exposed to it and as we get more enmeshed there, we'll just see more and more of that. So we're really excited to partner with them and really experiment with this chapter. We'll end up hiring somebody down there. They'll be really plugged into the community. The fellows are going to be plugged into not just their companies, but they're redesigning like 50 miles of the riverfront down there, and they want fellows to have like input on what that looks like. Like they want to pull them into all these exciting projects that are going on.
I'm actually like, if I was a fellow, I'd be like, the opportunity that you could go and like do something crazy cool in Evansville is like, it's very appealing.
High. Yeah. Yeah, and like one of the stats that shocked me from when I was down there, meeting with EREP, their chamber, and then ERBC, which helps coalesce some of the bigger companies, is they shared with me that 20 to 34-year-olds is their fastest growing segment down there in their population, which was surprising to me based on your face. I'm guessing it's surprising to you too.
Yeah, I did not pick that one.
I think it's helpful for us because it's not just that we're plugging Orr Fellows into maybe like a dying community or anything. It's like, hey, this is a community that's really got it going on. And they actually came and talked to our board. And after they left, I remember Scott Breton saying the way they're talking about Evansville is exactly the same way we talked about Indy when we started this thing.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So there's like a wave basically to tuck into of intentionality, of development. States Ready dollars are going to be a big part of that as they invest in that community. So I think there's a lot of things coming together that are going to make that really exciting. And so should Evansville be successful, I think it obviously opens up the possibility of additional chapters across the state. We're going to stick with this right now and just focus and get it right. But like obviously there's a lot of opportunity here in the state to continue to do that.
So you hear that? Fort Wayne, South Bend, Terre Haute, Vincennes,
We've
Muncie.
already had cities reach out when they saw the Evansville press release and they're like, hey, when's it going to be our turn? It's like 2027, give me a call.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's get in the list. It's a hot commodity.
Yeah, for sure. There's a waiting list actually. There's a lot of cities on it. But
yes.
So I think that's really exciting. We're growing a team. We're at 4 people now, which might not sound like a lot, but considering we hired our first employee in 2017, and it was a working board up until then. Shout out Karen Smithson being executive director for a while.
Karen was great.
Yeah, she's great. She's great. Really did a great job for the fellows and the fellowship during her time here.
Retweet.
Yeah, and then now we just got to a point. We just hired Amber Ferrari, who she's the first alumni we've been able to hire back into Orr Fellowship to help us run this thing, which is so fun. She runs all of our partner company relationships. Then we got Catherine and Jesse helping out on fellow engagement and fellow recruitment specifically. So really great team that's coming together, and I'm excited to grow it with somebody in Evansville, and then see what continues to happen here as we evolve.
Yeah, and I mean the big news was you guys got a huge grant from the Lilly Endowment, and so talk to me about
huge for us. Yeah, I mean based on the checks they're writing these days, not huge for them. But
well, I mean that.
Yeah.
Sorry, in the grand scheme of yeah, that's true. I mean, not the $20 million to every university.
Yeah, they literally wrote $50 million for parks like last week or something like that. It always makes me feel bad.
Parks are on the rise, and I need to do a whole debrief of just what's going on with the Lilly Endowment and all the money they need to spend on.
It's nuts. Great. Yeah, like they're growing like crazy. And
if you're a thought leader in nonprofit, specifically around the Lilly Endowment, let's get together and talk about what you guys are doing and the way you're making an impact. But talking about what you guys are doing, it's for sort of funding the growth because they believe in what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to be really clear. Definitely don't want to speak on behalf of Lilly Endowment, but they saw the track record of success, and that's what they look for in organizations. And so they came to us and said, if you had money to invest in your capacity to increase what you're able to do, what would you spend that on? And so I put together a few ideas for them, and they liked a few of them. And ultimately, at the end of last year, we got a grant for $750,000, which for us is very significant. And they're going into core investments and some marketing work and staff training and development. So myself and the team trying to level us up to do more, be more. We're doing some software development where that's actually where we're incorporating AI, which we can get to. I'm a geek about AI right now. My team makes fun of me because I'm always like, let me go to ChatGPT. But I think it's a real thing, and obviously a real thing, but I think it's going to be transformational.
I think it's
Is it? Well, I think it's going to catch on.
Well, technically it's like an artificial thing. Do you call that real? I think I call it I'm more of a natural intelligence guy.
Yeah, sorry. You could have fooled me. So.
I do want to just tap in briefly, 2 minutes. Tell me what you guys are doing with AI and how you're incorporating it into Orr Fellowship.
Yeah, so there's one completed project and a couple other ones. I'll just talk about the completed one right now, and we can get into the other ones later. But every year, as people come in, like I mentioned, we get about 1,000 applicants for our program. Each one of those resumes that comes with those has previously been reviewed by a human, and it's been 3 humans for each one.
Yeah.
Right? And so the fellows have been doing that.
It was a process.
It's like the energy, you can feel it just leave Orr instantly because our applications close, and then a few days later, all those need to be done because that's how we're doing advancements and making decisions about people. So what we've done historically on resume reviews and how we've trained fellows to do that, and we train the AI, the model, on how to do that. So we have our historical resume reviews, so what our curve, grading curve looks like, right? And then we have the PowerPoint and everything that we use to train fellows, and we fed all that into an AI agent who now can do it instantly. And so I would say over the course of...
I would love to feed my resume back in and see how it would rank me.
Yeah,
that'd be kind of fun.
It would be interesting, actually.
Let's do that.
So all told, that's about 200 hours of work that the fellows would do. And now it happens instantly. It's going to cost me $1 in tokens. over the course of the entire
tokens.
an entire recruitment season. Like it's very insignificant, and for the amount of time we save from our fellows, and
the amount of like less pissed off fellows you have,
which is valuable for me for sure. Less pissed off fellows, but we actually pivoted them into what we hope is more value added activity, which is just how like technology adoption works. But the time that they would have spent on resume reviews, we're actually just saying like, hey, get together as your school team, and you tell us who the top 10, 20% of the people you recruited are. So instead of them reviewing all these resumes, which is kind of tough to grade a human based on just a piece of paper, right? It doesn't always feel fair. We're also asking them to be like, okay, based on who you know and what you know about campus, who are the top 10, 20% of people that came in from your school this year? And we'll couple that with what the agent does to come out with like decisions.
Do you have a name for the agent?
No, we don't, but I've been coached to not call it a bot or a robot, but it's an agent.
It's
like
an
it can
agent.
actually think, and it's like tunable. And we've been making tweaks across the recruitment season, which is part of what's fun, is because like you can train an agent actually a little bit easier than you can train 120 fellows because it's all controlled, one sort of box here. But yeah, so that's the first project. The other ones are going to be partner company, and then hopefully the last one is alumni facing, which I'm really excited about. I do want to share it just because I'm really jazzed about it. And I believe we'll get there, but saying all this with a grain of salt. So if you're listening in alumni and you don't see it yet, don't hold that against me.
Remember, his email is steven@orrfellowship.org.
If you have complaints, send them straight to Nate and he'll filter them up to me. But
There we go.
The alumni, I actually want to feed the alumni base into
Your agent?
Yeah, into a new agent that all the alumni could then use. And so like you could say like, hey, I need help on maybe some demand generation for a project here at Nate Spangle Co., right? Who in the alumni base can help me on this? It would go through, and hopefully the goal is that it's connected to everybody's LinkedIn and like knows their skills or whatever, and could pull back people. Hey, here's Nate, here's the people you should talk to. So you can imagine how helpful that'd be for you as a fellow. Like when you're a fellow trying to connect with alumni, being able to say like, hey, I'm stuck on this project at Apex Benefits, or like, I don't understand insurance. Is there an alumni that I could talk to that could help me figure this out? And it would pull people. I think you could find people living in different cities would be another one. It's like, I'm going out to Denver, Colorado. I'd love to meet a couple fellows while I'm out there for coffee. Who's out there? What industries are they in? Those types of things. And then an added benefit, if we get it right, would actually be to open it up to our partner companies for hiring for positions that Orr Fellows aren't qualified for, not enough experience, but then they could hire from our alumni base.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of, I think, value to extract and to provide for both sides of the equation. Our partner companies and our alumni just keep giving value. I know a lot of partner companies and executives here in town that it's really meaningful for them when somebody's been an Orr Fellow or is an Orr Fellow when they're looking at job applications. So I think if there's a way for us to create action around that in a little bit more seamless way, it would be really valuable.
I love that. Well, I mean, that's super innovative. And what the work you guys are doing is just, I mean, I love it. Obviously, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Because the better you make it, the better it makes me. So it's like, it's
Well,
like,
and likewise, like the better you do in your career, the more illustrious Orr Fellowship becomes, right? And that's what I meant earlier when I said like, our success is our Orr Fellows' success. It's whenever alumni say like, what can I do to help Orr? It's like, go and be great. Like that's the best marketing we could do. It's why we haven't needed marketing.
And for the alumni out there, it's like, take the call.
Yeah.
Like be a good steward of like what was given to you. Like I'm always like, even if it's like, man, works hard. Like I'm 3 months into a full-time startup, but I still find time. If someone reaches out, like I'll take the call because I was given that opportunity and like people made time for me. So like, I know there are alumni that listen to this. Make sure you're picking up, responding. Check your LinkedIn, your email, or like the orrfellowship.org email address that I have. I have to remember to check that.
Yeah,
like,
it still exists for all the alumni.
I'm like, oh, so sorry. I haven't checked this in a month. Please.
Yeah, I talked to alumni and they're like, I still have that. It's like, yeah, you do.
Yeah, I might need to set up a forward on that since I give it to my email. But like, take the time because the same thing was given to us. So this is a very meta part because I'm to the younger years segment, and I always say this question is brought to you by our friends at Orr Fellowship, right? And it's a great.
Hey, that's me.
That's you, right? So Steven, what advice would you give to your 22-year-old self?
Ironically, I was a college dropout at that time. I was working full time in a family business. At 22, I probably would have said like, be patient, check your ego, because I had a big ego at that time. Learn as much as freaking possible. Or the only limits that exist in your life are the ones that you put on yourself. Like those are the things I would think about.
Oh yeah, I like that. Oh, that's great. I mean, hey, some of the best people in the world dropped out of college, right? Like, come on, let's go.
Yeah.
Like all the big ones.
I find it ironic. It's like when I think about Orr Fellowship and who we recruit, it's like I don't even know that I'd like qualify technically for our program, but here I am running it.
Yeah,
like,
right.
That's part of the fun of it. It's like, and that's part of why we're intentionally vague. Is like greatness and achievement can take all sorts of forms. Like it's not a super straight path. And that's why I'm so passionate about like this nonlinear progression in your career, like chasing your curiosity. I think that matters so much because you get stuck in these ruts otherwise. And like you just make a bunch of decisions just dictated on like sunk costs. Like I've been doing this for so long, so I should keep in it. Like your Lily example earlier.
Yeah, and I think that what's interesting is like Orr Fellowship isn't the 4.0, like only the 4.0 students. Like yes, some of them are like the like super high book smart, yada yada. But it's also like, you know, like I was definitely not a 4.0 student, but I was like selling stuff on eBay when I was in college and like just hustling and like knew that I wanted to be like an entrepreneur and like they loved it.
That's
like
so
I sat
fun.
in the board meetings and I was like, yeah, I'm not like, I don't have a 4.0. Like, but I am above the threshold. Like I was like, I had like a 3.4 or whatever. But I was like, but I've done all these like cool startup, and I didn't even know they were called startups. And I was like, I just do things to make money because I'm paying for.
It's called survival.
Yeah, right. Like, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, like you've like sold something on the internet." I was like, "Oh yeah, I've sold lots of things on the internet. It's fun."
Well, and I think like definitely, if you're a student listening to this, don't write yourself off. If you're not a 4.0, like to your point, like we take people really across the grade spectrum, like you should apply anyway, and we'll have that conversation when it gets there. But definitely don't write yourself off unnecessarily.
Okay, we're going to get to a little rapid fire for some fun questions as we wrap up here. Besides your current role as president of Orr Fellowship, and Stephen has a great quip about this, about like your dream job. You know, like if you get your dream job right when you're out of college, you should have bigger dreams, right?
Basically.
But as what you say, you're 31?
Yeah.
31 years old, besides Orr Fellowship, right? He loves Orr Fellowship, great job. What would your dream job be right now?
Infatuated with like AI and what it can do and like how that's going to change things.
And your agents.
Yeah, and my agents. I'm just back from a conference the last few days, and so I think AI was a big topic while I was out there, and I think the changes coming are unprecedented, and I'm so excited for those to be coming down the pipe, and I want to, you know, embrace those, be a part of those as best I can, especially at Orr Fellowship. Like we're a lean team, so trying to learn as much as possible and use that to push us forward. It's really exciting. So something I could see myself getting back into tech, AI. Always thought about entrepreneurship more by acquisition as opposed to starting my own thing. So I could see that for sure being like a possibility. And then there's a lot of options. I've learned to not be too dictatorial on like what I think should happen in my life and sort of let it come to me.
And the best things happen that way.
Yeah. I mean, both my last jobs, they came to me. Like the state came to me, Orr Fellowship, the board came to me. Like these things, as your brand grows, again, working hard and being good to people, the right opportunities tend to find you. So I think if there's consistency on that side, like those opportunities find you. So I guess on some level, my dream job, I have no clue what it is. And that's part of what's fun. Like,
I think that's important. The dream jobs will come to you, but not if you just sit there. You know, actually, Matt had Sam Parr on his podcast. Hunkler did. And Sam had the greatest analogy, greatest story ever. And he's like, okay, so you're driving down the road and you see someone that's hitchhiking, thumb up in the air. Like how many people stop and pick up that person? Almost no one.
Yeah, very few.
Right? But you're driving down the road and you see someone pushing their car, like to the gas station or wherever you're going.
Totally.
How many of us pull over and like help push?
Awesome.
Like like I would do it 100% of the time.
Yeah.
If I see someone pushing their car, that's your career. That's your startup. That's your life.
Yeah.
Like be out there pushing it, even if you don't know where the nearest gas station, your phone's dead and all this stuff, you're pushing your car.
Yeah.
The right
Just
people
move.
are going to come along there and help you push it. And like that really resonated with me on that.
Yeah. I mean, like pick the best direction you can think of and just start moving. And then again, like adapt when you're wrong. Like if you find out it's the wrong direction, make that decision and adapt in the moment. Like you're not married to anything, especially early on in your career. And so I would say just be open to whatever experiences life tends to put in front of you. Like still practice discretion and think about them, but life has a tendency to surprise us in really good ways.
I love that. Okay, we're going to ask you a few questions about the fellowship. What is the longest tenured partner company? Who's been doing it the longest?
It's an interesting question. I would actually say who's the longest tenured person that's been involved, and it would be Michael Burton at Stitch. He's been involved.
Dude
like
loves
20 years.
Orr Fellows.
Yeah, that dude loves himself some fellows. For
like
sure.
he takes,
yeah.
He's like, I'll just take the rest
and
of them.
He's like phenomenal human. I'm a very big fan of him and the environments he creates. But he's been involved, I think, for like over 20 years.
What
now.
was before Lev? Where was he at?
I believe he was at Exact Target. Part of the mafia. But whether as like a manager or then like leader of organizations, he's been involved, managed fellows, led fellows. So
dude, he would take so many fellows at Lev.
Yeah, he still holds the record for the most fellows ever hired in a single class, which was 9, which is there's a lot of people to hire on a single day. But yeah, he creates great environments for them to thrive. And so big fan of him. And the other one that comes to mind is Heritage Group. They've been a great partner company for us, very much in our corner. Yeah, big fan of what they got going on.
What's kind of like the most interesting partner company?
Two that come to mind, and it's because they're kind of surprising that they find Orr Fellowship and Orr Fellowship finds them. But one is Indy Auto Care, which that's run by a guy named EJ Williams, great guy, very big fan. But they own a string of Jiffy Lubes all across the state.
Yes,
dude,
yes.
And they're highly innovative. They do a lot on the back end with data and like trying to level up the whole organization. And so I think the learnings that they learn at their Jiffy Lubes, Hunter Beal, the fellow I mentioned earlier, was there, and they actually. All the Jiffy Lubes, like within the whole network, are finding value in what they're doing. So I think they're awesome. And then Venture Club is another one. They, for those that don't know, it's a nonprofit that focuses on connecting the venture capital community and just making an environment of known knowns. So all the players know each other and there's collaboration and excitement. But Claire Newman, previously in Nishala, she got married after taking a job, but she's an Orr Fellow, actually, and she's their executive director.
Wait,
So,
a current Orr Fellow?
a current Orr Fellow.
Current Orr Fellow is an executive director?
Yeah, isn't that wild? And she's doing a great job. Like, she's crushing it.
That's dope.
I know. It's like, I remember them reaching out to me and saying, like, is this something an Orr Fellowship, an Orr Fellow could do? And it's like, I'm pretty confident. Like, it'd have to be the right one, but I'm like very confident that somebody can do this. And she's gone in there and just very much rocked it and done a great job. So, very proud of her.
So her first job was as executive director?
Yeah, not wild. It's a tough resume to beat. You know,
That's hard.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Well, and it's like going back to just like our consistent thread about the connections you make. Like at the end of 2 years, she's gonna be able to go anywhere she wants in venture capital. Like she's gonna know all the people, and they're all gonna know her. Again, like if you're working hard and you're good to them, like there's gonna be options.
That's wild.
And so it's just pretty nuts.
Okay, what university has produced the most Orr Fellows?
Purdue.
What are top three?
I don't know if I actually know the top three. I know Purdue's the strongest, and part of that's just because like our founding team had so much connection.
Well, I'd like
sure.
to believe that per capita, based on size, that DePaul is up there.
It is up there,
We
yeah.
had like 6 in my class, 7 in my class, or whatever. And I was like, dude, we're for a school of 2,400 people. Like, come on. Like,
Purdue's doing a good job. I think the ones that are up and coming right now that's been really fun to watch happen is Taylor does a great job. Like really tight community there that recruits really well. Butler is doing a great job.
Oh, come on.
Wabash as well.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I'm not going to mention DePaul, man. Not going to do it not right now. But
Wow. Whoever you are.
yeah, that's up for them to change.
DePaul
So-
School Lead, you and I need to have some words.
Yeah.
Ma'am, sir, whoever you may be.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'd love to mention them.
we
Like
can't
next time
have-
I'm here, I want to mention
We
them.
can't have Wabash winning. That's so fun. Man, this is such a great conversation. We're going to wrap it out with my tried and true final questions of the lightning round. And I've switched up a few of the wording, like one of the wordings, because I think this is important. So, what's something the world needs to know about Indiana?
It seems like people have a tendency to write off stuff that happens here because it happens here. Yeah, last Friday we were at the India Autonomous Challenge, which for those of you that don't know, that's where they take India light cars and they have these teams from around the world, graduate schools that have put a bunch of autonomous hardware in them, and then they race on their algorithms around IMS. So they're trying to see who can do the fastest lap. The fastest lap was 180 miles per hour, I believe, at this competition. And I think it's really easy when you live here to be like, oh yeah, whatever, like it just happens. But like stuff like that happening here is wild. Indy 500 happening is wild. Like the biggest sporting event in the world happening here. And it's easy to write these things off. The All-Star game that you mentioned earlier, because they're here and it's like, oh, whatever, it's Indiana. But it's like, there's actually amazing things happening here. And I think we don't tend to give Indiana enough credit for punching well above its weight. In all
Wait,
areas.
and when you want to just be inspired a little bit, like just go look at like some of the stuff coming out of Purdue. And like I use doing great stuff and all these other, like you're talking about Purdue a little bit ago. Like I'll just like look through and it's like every third article like on any of these sites is like Purdue new
Purdue
EV
alumni. Yeah.
like EV charging highway. And I'm like
Yeah.
EV charging highway going in Lafayette. It's like you're gonna be able to like pick up battery for your Tesla while you're
wild.
driving on this street. I'm like,
Yeah.
what the world?
I remember when I was at the state, there was a company called Adranos. I worked with LV Ventures a good amount when I was at the state, and they invested in them, but it was Purdue IP around rocket fuel technology that they had started a company around. These people had found it on a shelf, started a business around it, and then it just sold, I believe, a year or two ago. But it's like, what a cool story. Startup
Nuts.
here,
It's
rocket
nuts.
fuel technology in Indiana. It's like wild, but it's happening here. And I think giving Indiana the credit it deserves on some of that stuff is really cool. And maybe it's because I'm a Hoosier by choice, like coming from outside, that I notice this stuff a little bit more and other people take it for granted. But I think it's really
The,
incredible.
the thing that I've loved about this from the podcast perspective is like all these people are so humble, and I get to bring them on and just be like, holy smokes, you did what?
Yeah.
$10 billion? Like the freaking Cameron was on, he was like he's actually my first episode that I recorded in the new studio. He ran 11,000 miles around the country.
Amazing.
And like, he's just like, oh yeah, I just started running and like, and I'm just like, dude, you're crazy. Like, let's
like
go.
some Forrest Gump energy.
Yeah,
Where it's like, I just
literally.
started I felt like running, so I
just
started.
I'm pretty tired. I think I'm gonna go home now. All right, this is. I hope you're prepared for this one. This could go viral if you
let's
answer
do it.
correctly. Right? It's-
My first viral moment. It'll be fun.
No, you are a newly minted social media star.
Yeah, it turns out.
Come on.
Turns out.
What is a hidden gem in Indiana?
Okay, so there's two that come to mind. One, our favorite restaurant here in the city is a restaurant called Late Harvest. It's in sort of a strip mall, Keystone area. A lot of people don't see it, but it's actually like really high-end food, great outdoor patio, great drinks, great food, all the things. And we've been going there, I think, for about 5 years. Huge fan. But again, like I think it's next to an Old Navy, so like, it's really easy to miss this restaurant.
You could get a great outfit and then go
for
to
sure.
dinner.
Yeah, pick up your outfit for
At
the dinner,
a fair
right?
price.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that's great. And then the Benberg downtown. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's part of Cunningham Restaurant Group, and it's like a private bar. Really great bartenders.
Oh.
Like it's like so. I feel so fancy when I walk in there, but it's actually like amazing.
Where's it
It's
at?
very cool. It's just south of Mass on like the north end. So I'm trying to think of the cross streets, sort of by St. Joseph's Brewery, just west of there, like a couple blocks.
It's like a little like members only.
You wouldn't know it's there. Like you text them that you're coming, and then like they unlock the door when you get there, and then like
Wait, what?
yeah, they know your number. It's like speakeasy vibes. It's very fun.
This is Cunningham Group.
Yeah,
Well, hey, Cunningham Group, if you see this and you want to
want to sponsor with a membership.
You want to give Nate a little membership, I'll bring some cool people in there. That's dope.
I think
Okay.
it's so cool. Very fun.
We're actually, Steven's going to get a text. He's like, you can't be talking about our membership on public locations. You're revoked.
We'll see.
All right. And final question of the day. Who's a Hoosier that we need to keep on our radar? Someone who's doing big things.
Obviously, our Orr Fellows would be the first answer. So Nate Spangle, Claire, who went out to Africa on Impact Investing, Hunter. I mean, the one that's going to create the most waves and I think the most attention to Indiana, Caitlin Clark, like pretty obviously. Like, yeah, she's going to.
You are a Hoosier now, Caitlin, whether you like it or not.
We claim you. It's not up to you, actually. So you're here now. And I think, we heard from A-Rod at Rally that women's sports he thinks is like the next big wave here in sports and sports business. And I think Indiana on the back of, the Fever, Caitlin Clark, and like what she's been able to build.
And our new incoming volleyball team.
Yeah, like I think there's no shortage of opportunity for Indiana to actually become the epicenter of that. And there's a lot of really powerful females that are leading that space that I'm excited to keep an eye on as this sort of develops.
I love that. And Caitlin, if you're ever looking for a place, an outlet to come and talk
I'm
about,
sure she's like, what do I do with all this attention?
Right. It's like, I need to go on Nate's show. We'd love to have you. My email is nate@natespangle.com. Please come on and we'll just we'll chop it up about not basketball. We'll talk about anything you want. Corn, the price of corn these days.
Yeah.
It'll be great. Stephen, thank you for all the hard work you do for Orr Fellowship. Thank you for all the hard work you do for the state of Indiana. This was a super fun episode. I'm excited. It's near and dear to my heart. Keep making an impact not only in the lives of these young professionals every single day, but as well as the Indiana economy. Like you get to be the champion of these, 120 young professionals. You get to go out and do like who knows what. You've had 2 graduating classes in so far, and it's like there's just more to come. And like think about the coaching tree from like this organization. It's crazy. Like I'd love to see that mapped out.
Yeah, it would actually be super interesting to watch like all the connectivity across it and the lines that connect. One thing I haven't mentioned yet that I need to is depending on when this goes live, applications if you're a graduate or graduating senior in 2025, applications are live for both chapters of our program right now. Those are going to be live through September 26th. So hopefully this is live before then, but we'd love to have you involved. Anybody younger than that, you can join our email list, get involved to stay up to speed for future recruitment classes. So then partner companies, always looking for great companies to join the mix here. So if you're a partner company and you're interested in getting involved, we'll be selecting partner companies all the way through October. So feel free to reach out.
Yeah, if you are a college senior that listens to this podcast, you are supposed to be an Orr Fellow. Like it's just like
that
this
is actually
guaranteed.
true. The Venn
right?
diagram is
like it's right there. And then and if you're a partner company, if you're a company in general, and here in Indiana, whether you're in Evansville or you're in Indianapolis here, and you want to, get the best talent that there is, you need to talk to Steven.
Yeah.
Or talk to me and I'll make an introduction to you. Either way, it'll be fun. Appreciate you. Keep up all the great work. And
Thanks, Nate.
we'll see. I can't wait to do a little recap next year and see how this class shaped up.
Yeah, it'll be super fun.
This episode was brought to you by our friends at Hard Truth. They are an amazing Indiana distillery that is absolutely crushing it. I just went down to Nashville to check out their operation and it did not disappoint. We went on an ATV tour followed by a tiki cruise and then rounded out the visit with a full tour of their distillery. I learned so much about whiskey, bourbon, and some history of Brown County. Then we ate dinner at their restaurant and it did not disappoint. Mark your calendar for Harvest Fest on September 28th. They're releasing their third collaboration with Mellencamp Whiskey Company and will have live music as well as a meet and greet and bottle signing. Festivities run from 12 to 9 p.m. with the whiskey tent opening at 2. Get your tickets at hardtruth.com. Thank you for listening to this episode of Get In. If you liked what you heard, make sure you leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. This show is made possible by our friends up at Sweetwater. Whether you're trying to start your own podcast or looking to take your show to the next level, make sure you check out sweetwater.com for all your creator needs. If you want exclusive behind-the-scenes content on all things Indiana, make sure you follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Nate Spangle. Thank you for being part of what makes the Hoosier State so amazing. We'll see you next week here on Get In.